Hi, and welcome back to the Superintendent Report with Dr. Ryder Warren. How are you?
Allie Joe, I'm great. How about you?
I'm good.
How was spring break?
It was good. It was busy.
Did y'all do anything?
Yes, we went snowboarding and skiing.
Nice.
It was lots of fun.
Very
What about
nice. We just kind of hung around.
Okay.
We had 2 of our 3 of our kids were back home, so that's always nice.
Yeah.
And so we had a lot of good family time.
That's awesome.
Last time we talked, I think you got a little good news from OSU. Is that right?
Yes.
So it's still is that a done deal?
Yes, sir. That's where I plan
Okay.
on going.
So you're gonna be a cowboy?
Yes, go Pokes.
Yeah, there you go. Dorm, you know.
Yep, I picked my dorm room April 9th.
April the 9th. Okay. Very
Yes,
good.
sir.
I'm
Very
proud
excited.
of you.
Thank you.
Very good. What's going on today?
So, first question, being a senior, I'm really...
Okay, but before you do this, let's apologize to people.
Okay.
Okay, we were supposed to have done this about 2 months ago. Do you remember?
We were.
All right.
Yes, sir.
So we were gonna have students at all 4 high schools submit questions, and you guys, Northwest, were able to do that. And we did that about 2 months ago, and then we were gonna do Eaton and Byron, over the next 2 months. And of course, the big freeze happened and we got put behind. I had something going on, came up last time. So we're about 2 months behind on this. So this is I think we've got about 4 or 5 questions, and this is a combination of both Eaton questions and Byron Nelson questions. So I appreciate those guys chiming in. And then for one of our shows later this spring, we'll get Steele questions over here. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yep, sounds like a plan to me.
So go ahead.
All right, so just jump right in. Kind of regarding the traditional events that, high schools have, like prom, graduation, things like that. How normal do you think those will be after the new guidelines, things like that?
Allie Joe, I don't even know what the word normal looks like anymore. I really don't. We're going to do our best to provide as many activities as we can. What they will look like, I have no idea. So the normal question, I don't know. If you remember, the last time I did a Facebook Live, we had made the decision about graduations. That's the most important thing for us. For seniors to have a true graduation ceremony. And because if you remember last year, we were up in the air a long time with what that was going to be. And then we finally had the racetrack, Texas Motor Speedway. And that was a great setting. It just wasn't as traditional of a setting, a traditional experience as we wanted to. Normally, we go over to North Texas to their Coliseum. Again, we wouldn't be able to hold as many people in there because of the guidelines. So we have decided on the stadium, NISD Stadium. I think right now every senior is going to get about 8 tickets for their families, which that's a good amount for the families. And we're also going to live stream it if they need more than 8 tickets, and if they need the members to see it, then we're going to live stream it. So that's going to be good. We have actually, and I don't know if you're on one or not, but we actually have begun planning committees at each of the high schools. We have administrators, we have teachers, and we have students on these planning committees to look at everything you just said. Our proms, our award ceremonies, all the things that we normally do toward the end of the school year. And it's crazy we're already talking about the end of the school year, but it's going so fast. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to let these campus-based committees, as we get new rules from the state, as we get new rules from the government, and to see exactly what we can do. So that's just really, it's more information is coming on that, but we're working on it.
Awesome.
Great question.
All right, so kind of switching gears. Every Facebook Live, we talk a lot about the bond.
Yeah.
So just, to kind of reiterate it, what does the bond, mean for us? What does it mean if it doesn't pass? What does it mean if it does? Just kind of to, again, reiterate it.
Well, Allie Joe, if you'll remember, and a lot of people are asking, what's the difference in the bond that we tried in November and the one we're trying now? This bond is actually a year old now. We were actually going to, we did propose a bond last May. That's the normal month that we usually, there's 2 months in a year that we can have an election, either May or November. We like May. We had proposed one in May, and then COVID happened, and everything got shut down. And the governor of Texas, Governor Abbott, actually canceled last May's elections. And so everything was moved to November. A lot of things were going on in November. A lot of things. There was a big presidential race. There's a lot of different things, and our bond did not pass. So coming up in this May, and Allie Joe, the reason why we do these bonds is it is the only mechanism. Selling bonds is the only mechanism that we have to produce enough funding, enough money to build new schools, to renovate schools, to add on to schools, the money that we need to keep up with our growth, We're still growing 1,100 new students a year. And to make sure our students are, that we have equality across the district, no matter where students live, we want them to basically experience the same NISD culture, environment in all of our 30 schools. To be able to do that, we have to sell bonds, and that's why we have to ask permission of our electorate to do that. So the main difference between last November and this one is about $240 million. We actually peeled $240 million off of the November. So this one is a $745 million bond. That's a lot of money, but again, there's a lot of needs out there. And you ask the question, what happens if we are going to continue to ask permission to do this work because, again, mainly because we are what is called a fast growth school district. We're always growing. And we love that because families are moving into our school district because of the schools. And that's because of the work of the students, the work of the teachers, the work of all of our staff and our families. And so we're just going to continue to work on these things to make sure that we have the adequate space and that we have the right environment for students.
Awesome.
Does all that make sense?
Oh, yes, sir, of course.
Okay.
Just always leaning towards students.
Yeah,
pretty much.
absolutely.
So kind of speaking of students, is there anything that, student council on campuses can do, for district issues like this? Well,
there's a lot of things student councils can do. I truly appreciate the students who step into those leadership roles. We have so many groups who I call student leaders. Student council are have done a phenomenal job representing their campuses. In fact, in probably about a month, I'm going to sit down with many of the groups of student councils. We come together as one big group a year just to sit down with me, talk about leadership, things like that. From a bond standpoint, student councils can just absolutely emphasize get out and vote. A lot of our seniors are going to be eligible to vote if you've registered to vote, and if you do that, so student councils can absolutely have those get out to the vote campaigns. For all the general issues, I don't know if I would change a single thing about what the student councils are doing right now. They're representing their campuses. I've been in front of the student councils this year. They're trying to figure out how to make their campuses better, how to make the experiences better for the students there. And they're doing all the right things right now. I'm very proud of them.
Awesome.
Yep.
So kind of going back to when we were talking about the bond and stuff like that, there's been some concerns about money going more towards sports rather than academics. Do you have anything clear up on that?
Well, and I think that question came from just the general budget. We're making some decisions right now. We're having to cut our budget. We're always looking at ways of being more efficient with our budgets. We use taxpayer dollars. Schools don't really produce their own money. We use tax dollars, whether it be funding from the state, but more so, those of us who own our own homes, who own businesses, that's who funds public education. So we've got to be very efficient on how we use taxpayers' dollars. That's very important. And I get questions all the time is that people think that we spend way too much money on one program over the other. And that's a great example that you gave. People say, why do you spend so much more money on athletics than you do our academic programs or our music programs or, anything like that. Out of our entire budget, we have about a $255 million yearly budget. That's what we live on, 30 different campuses. Allie Jo, if you were to guess percentage-wise, how much percent would you think we spend on athletics? Out of 100% of the budget, how much would you say we spend on athletics?
Like 20 maybe?
20%?
20, yeah.
Okay, so we actually spend less than 2%.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, so I'm glad you said that because that's what people assume is we spend 20 to 30% just on athletics and everything else gets whatever's remaining. Less than 2% of our total budget is on athletics, and that's just people I love it when I get that question because we can kind of set things straight. And people, that athletics is a very important part of our school district. Fine arts, the academies, the career and technology academies, our pathways, everything that we do. The most important thing that a school budget does, it funds people. We are a very people-driven industry. Our teachers and everybody here to support our teachers, the salaries that they get, the resources that they have just to take care of their own families, the benefits that we get, all that comes out of our budget. And so that's a good question, because people do assume sometimes that we spend such a disordinate amount of money just on athletics, and that's just not the case.
So there's a lot going on in the world, and there's kind of a big question surrounding, social injustice.
Yes.
Do you have kind of anything to say?
Allie Jo, that's a great question. I told someone the other day, it would be very tough on me if I were a teenager these days. I don't think I would be a great teenager these days, because you guys, and I'm talking about pretty much every, when I walk into our high schools, even our middle schools, the teenagers that I see, you're getting a lot of things thrown at you. Even kids younger than teenage years, you're getting a lot of things thrown at you. You're seeing a lot of examples of what I call very bad behavior. Your generation has seen a group of adults attack our state, our national capital. They've seen it attack Congress. You've seen other examples of what I call just bad behavior. When we talk about social injustice in NISD, the two things that I always go back to is just, we're going to treat people with respect. That is, for me, that is the driving force of you're talking about teachers in our classrooms, the relationships that we have with students, relationships of the adults we have with each other, the relationships students have with each other students. There's a lot of disagreement in the world, and disagreement is fantastic. Usually how problems and challenges get worked out is through disagreement, because people disagreeing with each other and then working through those disagreements to find an answer. There's nothing wrong with being different. It's just how we work with each other to make sure that those differences don't get in the way of respectful relationships. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And those are the things that we're really talking about behind the scenes right now, is that every student, every adult in the district needs to know they have a voice, that they have an opinion, and their opinions can be stated in the public without fear of retribution, without fear of being teased or anything like that, however you say it, that every person has a voice, and that we need to understand that everybody comes from a different background. We have different social views, we have different religious views, we have all these things in our lives. But Allie Jo, that's the greatest thing about public education to me. And I use my 3 kids as an example all the time. I have 3 kids who grew up all the way through public ed. It would have been very weird if my wife and I would send our kids to private education with me doing what I do. But they've had to sit in front of other students. And you guys know how we like to work in groups. The world works in groups. We all work in work groups. It's very important that we have teams. And they've had to sit there and be in front of kids who are totally different from the way they've grown up. Totally different. They've been from different countries. They speak different languages. Again, they have different religious views. And they've been able to form relations with them even with those differences. And that's where we are trying to go, is just making sure that we respect each other, that we can respectfully disagree with each other. And in doing so, we'll probably come out with a better perspective about each other if we can have those kind of conversations.
Absolutely.
So that's, again, I really appreciate the way Northwest ISD students are, just how you're taking in this whole world, the things that are happening in the world, COVID, a lot of things have been thrown at you. And I'll just give you a little bit of a preview of what you're going to hear from me at graduation. A lot of folks think, well, maybe not a lot of folks, but some folks think that this generation has really been beaten down by what life has thrown at you over the last year and a half. I don't think that at all. I think you've toughened up. I can see it in all 4 high schools, just the high school kids. I think you are going to have a different perspective coming out of school, but I think a lot of the success that you're going to have in your lives is from the experiences in them, because I think you really kind of understand this is what I've got to do to succeed.
Yeah,
so, all
absolutely.
Right. That's my speech for the day.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome so much.
Those are all the questions that I have for you today.
All right.
Thank you so much for joining us on this Superintendent's Report. We'll see you back here next time.